If you like lots of decks of little cards, then boy howdy do I have a game for you. What's up everybody? Welcome back to the Dungeon Dive, and I'm going to take a quick look tonight at Posthuman, Survive, Evolve. So Posthuman was, I believe it was a Kickstarter game. I did not get it through Kickstarter. I think I got this on Craigslist from somebody. This is the Kickstarter version though, with the 5 and 6 player expansion. I do not recommend playing this game with 5 or 6 players. I have a feeling it would take far too long. But to offset that, or as a caveat, I have actually never played this game with a group. I've only simulated play with 2 characters, and I've done the solo play. I don't like the solo play. Let's get the bad stuff out of the way. I really dislike games in where the solo game is not a full game, and that is very much how Posthuman plays solo, because you don't play with one of the most interesting aspects of the game, and one of the most interesting aspects of the game really does need a group of people, because there's some hidden information that leads to some really stressful, suspenseful moments that when they pop, it changes the game. And so I'm trying to get this game to the table with my group. We're having a hard time getting it scheduled, because I really think this game is pretty freaking rad, if you ask me. Now, like I said, there are a ton of, just absolute ton of decks of cards in this game. It's crazy. So you have so this is the 2 decks of cards that you don't use in the solo game, and these dictate, as you take damage from certain enemies, you get mutation scars, and when you get a certain number of these, you can either choose or you're forced to become a mutant, at which point you become like a bad guy in the game. And through the use of these mutation actions, you get to start to play kind of a whole different kind of game than everyone else who is still a human. Really cool. You have this big deck of skill cards here, which all of these are different ways that you can upgrade your character and make your character special and do different things, have different kinds of stats. And then you have here, you have a pretty large stack of equipment cards, and these are all things that you can find to help you on your way. They take up different spaces in your inventory, and there are cool things like an MP3 player. So when you're out of combat, you can listen to this to gain a morale. But hey, you know what? The battery might go dead. Tents to help you camp, shoes to help you move, binoculars to help you scout. So just all kinds of really neat things. They really thought about the theme in this game, and that's one of the things that I absolutely love about it. And then we have here the weapons, all the different weapons you can get. So there are ranged weapons and melee weapons, and they all have different stats and different ways to use them. And then we have here, with the expansion came armor. And so when the game tells you to draw a weapon, you can choose to draw from the armor deck instead, and this helps you survive melee. Then you have supply cards you draw when you forage a tile. You have event cards. You have huge stacks of tiles. You have mutant minions, human minions, 3 different levels of encounters, and a deck of followers. So there is a ton of stuff in this game. In addition to all of those cards, you also have these really great character sheets. And you also have a pretty interesting way of creating characters or using pre-generated characters. So in this game I'm playing right now, I'm using 2 pre-generated characters. I'm using the Cage Fighter and the Butcher. So if we look at the Butcher's card here, we have certain stats that he comes with. So 2 mind, 3 speed, 4 strength, 4 melee, and 3 ranged. He comes with the skill Footwork. So Footwork lets me reroll a single miss on melee attacks. And then you also start with a knife, a pistol, a flare, 3 food, and 2 ammo. So food you have to eat at the beginning of every turn, or else you start to starve. And as you starve, your morale and health goes down. So that's one of the things. This game is very much a survival horror style game. Ammo is used to shoot your ranged weapons. So all ranged weapons cost a certain number of ammo points to use. And then each one of these stats is actually a little token that you can upgrade. And then when you create a character, all the stats start at 2, and you have something like, I think it's like 10 development points that you can use. If you don't want to play one of these pre-made characters, you can use to upgrade your different stats. So you have mind. Mind dictates how many skills you can have. Speed is how fast you are, how good you are at evading, and if you shoot first or last in ranged combat. Strength represents how strong you are and adds extra damage to melee. Melee dictates if you get to roll bonus die when attacking with melee. And then shooting dictates how many dice you get to roll when in ranged combat. So as you can see, the production quality is pretty dang good. You have these wooden cubes that you can keep track of everything. What I really like about here is so your health is based off of your strength, and your morale is based off of your mind. And you put a little gray cube, so his health max is 7. So you put a little gray cube on 8 to symbolize that 7 is the farthest you can go up. So this is your maximum amount. Just nice, so you never go above. You can never go above your starting amount of health or morale. And this is your backpack. So every item that you have on the table to the left, you have your active weapons, and you can see that those each take up 1 spot. And then you have your inventory over here, and then you can hold up to 3 cards in your hand that don't count against your inventory. But anything on the table that is in play takes up a certain amount of spots in your backpack. So basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to have a certain number of encounters, and as you have encounters, you move up this journey track, and the first player to reach the end goal wins. And the way you do that is by every character has his or her own board that they're building with these tiles. And each tile has a certain number of zones in it. And as you move to the tile, you progress through the zones, having encounters. Each time you progress a zone, you get a journey point that you can go up, so long as the encounter is equal to the next spot on the map. So as you can see, my butcher here, he's a blue hiker. My next encounters, for me to progress, have to be level 1. Once I'm here, any encounters I have for me to continue to progress have to be level 2, and so on. And so that's kind of the game. It's not very complex. There are quite a few moving pieces, and the rule book is a little ambiguous. I have a printed rule book that's kind of a version 2.0 that also includes some errata that was compiled by a BGG user named O. Brederson. And so I remember I didn't follow the original Kickstarter campaign. I don't even think I knew about it. But when it came out, I remember it falling kind of flat. I don't think Z Garcia on the Dice Tower liked it very much, if I'm remembering correctly, and I think a lot of people had trouble with the rules. It's too bad because I think once you get it down, I think it's actually a pretty cool game. Especially, I think, for 3 players, I think this would be a fantastic game. There really aren't very many post-apocalyptic themed board games, and I'm not sure why. It seems like it should be a setting and a genre that is perfect for a board game. You know, there's Defenders of the Last Stand, which I really like. Then, of course, there's Fallout, which I personally think is pretty cool. I know a lot of people don't like it. I think it's a good solo game if you want to just kind of have a neat adventure. There's this, and there's Wasteland Express. Maybe a couple others that I'm just not able to think of right now, but I would think that there would be more post-apocalyptic, I guess, the 51st, or no, Hiroshima Hex, I think. That's kind of post-apocalyptic. I know there's a few, I'm probably forgetting some, but I would just think there would be a far greater number of post-apocalyptic games, just because it's an interesting setting that you can have a lot of different kinds of encounters with animals, with beasts, with mutants and humans, and you can, I guess some of the zombie games I would say are definitely, what's the Dead of Winter is a really good game, but this feels more like an adventure game than Dead of Winter does. Dead of Winter is more kind of like a psychological survival horror, where this feels more like an adventure style survival horror. So let's go over, we're just going to do a brief turn. I'm not going to play a lot. So what you do is at the beginning of a turn, one player will draw one card from the event deck. And this kind of changes the rules, adds something special for the entire turn. So let's see what this is. This is Togetherness, an event. All players count as being on the same terrain type for the purpose of trading equipment and skill usage. This skill remains in play until you draw the next event card. Okay, so each tile has a certain type. You have forests, you have urban, fields, I think. And I think there's one other type, maybe special type or something. But so long as players are on the same type of tile, they can trade items. And if there are certain situations, like if there are safe houses on those tiles as well, they can also use skills that they have on other players in order to barter for items, which is really cool. So this card allows us to ignore those tile types and just trade freely and use skills on each other freely. Okay, so we're not going to do that now. I don't really have very many skills right now. Actually, so my cage fighter here, she has enough XP that she got from some encounter. So she has 1, 2, 3 points of experience. So she can actually trade those in on her character sheet. She can trade 3 experience points for 2 skills, and then she gets to keep 1. So let's do that. Let's see what I'm going to draw 2 skills off the top of the deck here. So these are verses, so these cannot be used to help. These are only used to harm. So we have looting. After completing a camp action, you may attempt to steal an item from another player on the same terrain type as your own. They need not agree. Both roll a die and add your speed. If your total is higher, you may draw a random equipment or weapon card from their hand. And, oh, I got 2 of the same one. Let's pick a different one just so we can have a choice here. Skill, weaponsmithing. While foraging, if you draw a weapon card, you may discard it and draw another. You must keep the second card. You may discard this card along with a weapon from your hand or in play and draw another card. All right, I'm going to go ahead and keep that one. I think that sounds like an interesting skill. So she leveled up there. So the next thing you do is each player has a hand of cards that tell what they can do. So the 4 things you can do on a turn is you can forage, which means you can basically kind of like searching your tile for gear as long as you've completed all the zones in your tile. You can scout, which lets you look at cards for each exit node on your tile that you are in. So if I was here, I could draw 3 tiles and place them. So I'm kind of like getting a lay of the land to start planning my next turns. So draw a terrain tile for every unconnected exit node on your current tile and place them at these exits in any order and rotation as long as the exits match. You do not move onto the new tile. So you're just looking ahead. You can move, so you can move one zone and resolve the encounters. If you're on a completed terrain, you may either move into an adjacent tile or draw a new tile. Place it on an unconnected exit node of your current tile and move on to its first zone. Or you can camp. So if you camp, you regain 2 health. If you're in a safe spot, a safe house, which is a tile that has a blue circle from one of its zones, you gain an additional health or morale. And then you may also use relevant skills and equipment on yourself or on other players if they are on the same terrain type. So let's just play a turn with the butcher. The butcher is actually going to move. So let's say all the characters pick their moves in secret and then they all reveal. So he's going to move. And then if you were a mutant, mutants have a certain number of mutant action cards, and during the action selection phase they get to look at these and they will get to secretly pick one of these to do to the other players. One of the cool ones is, one of the things you can do is you can actually kind of like be kind of a reconnaissance mutant where you can go through these encounter decks, look at a certain number of them, and then order them in any way to kind of sabotage the other players. So my butcher, he's going to move. So he's going to move from, he completed this tile already, which is one of these tokens, and he's going to move to the first zone of this next tile that he scouted. And this tile has 3 zones, so I have to complete each zone before this tile is completed, and the number of figures in each zone represents how many encounters I have. So if I move here, I'm going to have 1 encounter right now, and I'm on a level 1 encounter, so we're going to draw the top card here, and it is a hoarder, a human. So this guy has ranged combat and melee combat. You may either attack the hoarder or ignore them. If I attack, resolve combat. If you defeat the hoarder, take 1 equipment card. Ignore, discard, and draw another encounter. I'm going to go ahead and take that. So we're going to place that there. And then let's see how combat works. So we're going to have ranged combat and melee. So we do ranged first. So what you do is first of all, you compare speed to see who gets to shoot fastest. So the hoarder has a speed of 1. My butcher has a speed of 3. The first thing I have to do is I have to discard an ammo token. Ammo is pretty scarce in this game, so you do kind of want to limit how much you use your ranged weapons. That's a really big thing in this game, is just managing your resources, just like any kind of survival horror video game. So I'm going to use my 9mm, and I'm going to pick my dice. So I roll 2 dice for my skill of 3, 2 blue dice, 2 blue die, and then an additional 1 for my weapon. And I hit on, so the one thing that's a little confusing is, okay, so the blue dice have these faces. So my range is 1, so any target 1 counts as a hit. Then if you look at the card, every question mark that I roll counts as 1 hit. and so on. In addition to that, you have an X, which is a miss. And then if I had a shooting skill of 5 or more, then this marksman would also count as a hit. Or if I had like a rifle that had a range of 3, the 1, the 2, and the 3 would all count as hits. So right now I am looking for either question marks or target 1s. So let's see what I get here. All right, so that was not very good. There's 2 marksmen, so I'm not a good marksman, so those don't count as hits. However, I did score 1 question mark hit, which does 1 wound. I just want to double check. I don't do ranged combat very often. So yeah, so number of hits with range less than or equal to the range inflict wounds. Yep, so I inflicted 1 wound on the mutant, or the human hoarder. He has 2 health. So now he gets to do the same to me. And he rolls 2 blue die. Each question mark counts as a hit. Okay, so there's a miss and a hit. Okay, so he does 1 hit to me, so I take 1 health. Then the second part of combat is we move on to melee. Now melee, there are 3 rounds of melee combat. The first thing we do is we compare our melee skills. Mine is 4, and his is 2. Normally, if they are equal, then each of the combatants rolls 3 red die. However, if I have more or if he has more, you add a die. And melee is simultaneous. So we're going to roll these dice, and then we're going to just set them up over here. So there's the butcher's die, and then there is the hoarder's. So I am attacking with a knife. It's not a very good weapon. Basically what I'm looking for is question marks equal hits and filled in axes equal hits. These are called like warrior, these empty axes, and they only count as hits if you have a melee value of 5 or more. So these don't hit. This counts as a hit with a knife, and this counts as a hit with a knife. This hit also adds a wound. The knife adds a wound. And because I have a strength of 4, I also add a wound. So I'm doing 3 melee wounds to the human hoarder. However, the hoarder is blocking 1. So he'll block 1 hit. And then he's looking for question marks. Okay, he didn't roll any question marks, so there are no hits. So I actually do the hits to him. He does none to me. And so I hit him with at least 2, killing him. And then I would get to take this card as an experience point and also draw an equipment card for loot, giving me a vaccine. Play anytime. I can discard a mutant card, so I don't want to become a mutant. And that takes 1 spot in my inventory, and so I would fill up another spot in my backpack. And that's kind of the game. The encounters can go a little long, which is why I would never want to play this with 5 or 6 players. I think 4 would definitely be the max. I do think that 3 is a sweet spot, and I'm really hoping to get this game to the table with my group because I think it's fun, and I've only played it simulating with 2 players, really. Missing that whole aspect of a mutant. So when you become a mutant, if you ever have 5 of these scars, see the cool thing about these scar cards is some of them don't actually count against you. But all of these are secret, so the other players don't know how many actual scars you have. As soon as you have, I think if you have 3 or 4, so if this was my hand, I've had 3 actual scars. I could choose to become a mutant, or I could suppress it. But as soon as I get 5, I automatically become a mutant. At that point, you discard your empty scars, so these don't count as anything. And you discard all of your items, and you become a mutant that has these stats. So you get to add to your normal stats, you get to add a melee, a speed, another melee, a strength, and a mind. And then you also do more wounds, so these count as wounds because you don't have weapons, so you're using your razor claws and extra arms. You're massive, you have huge eyes, you may discard 2 cards instead of 1 when playing a tactics action. So these become your character sheet, basically. These become your stats, and then you start getting able to use the mutant actions and have all kinds of weird and different things happening. So yeah, that's Posthuman in a nutshell. This is a cool game. I'm really looking forward to getting it to the table, like I said a couple times, with my group. The art is really good. The character sheets are really nice. They're really nicely made. Let's see if I can get one up. They have good information on there. And everything is really nice. It comes with a ton of stuff, so you're definitely getting a lot of game here, a lot of variety. So all right, well, I just wanted to do a quick video, go over this game with you. Maybe if you guys haven't heard of it, or maybe you've kind of stayed away from it because of some of the negative reaction that it got on Kickstarter, or it got after the Kickstarter delivered. Look into it. If you can, I've seen copies go for pretty cheap because I think people got it and just didn't like it, and so they are trying to get rid of it. I got mine for really cheap, actually. So all right, well, hope you guys have a good one, and talk to you later. Bye bye.